Hi, this is Jose Palomino with another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. And we're going to continue our discussion around competitive edge, specifically your competitive edge. And if you remember, we defined that as having four big moving parts. One, of course, is your value proposition. Essentially, like the answer to the question, why should anyone buy X from you at Y price? And there's a lot of detail to go into that, but that's a critical thought. We're going to come back to that in a moment. The second thing right aligned against it is, of course, value delivery. How well do you actually fulfill on the promises you're making to get business? The third is that you actually have what we call intentional marketing or marketing designed to create opportunities for you. If you're in a B2B company, just being well known, just extending or expanding your brand is not enough. You actually want to create positive inquiry, engagement, support the work you're doing, even if you're doing outbound marketing as well, that people actually have a positive view of you because of your marketing. And even better, they're actually intentionally reaching back to you because they're interested in what they've heard about. And they say, I want to know more about you. And then, of course, once you get those opportunities, those out at bats, even if it's as a result of you being outbound or a result of they came inbound, through your content marketing, your social marketing, whatever you did to get their attention, you need to execute excellently so you convert opportunities into actual sales, into revenue. And the meta thought behind competitive edge is this. Yes, we want to win. We want you to win. You want to win. But you have to think about it this way, that if you win, you don't have to lap the field. You don't have to reinvent your entire industry to win. You have to be, and you have to identify those things you do that are a little better than your competition. They could be internal processes, things you do that save you time, save you effort, let you be more responsive. And of course, you have to have some advantages in your core value proposition from the customer's point of view. But here's the thing, let's dig into that. That's really the essence of value proposition. Of course, I wrote the book Value Prop. Company name is Value Props. So we spent a lot of time on this. And what I'm going to tell you now and what I'm going to share with you is not like the last word on value propositions, but it is a way to think about B2B in terms of either how you put your messaging out there, when you start thinking about your core offer to the marketplace, like what you're actually trying to get out into the marketplace. When you start thinking about the problems you solve for your customers, which you should be thinking in those terms, and you think about the language you use, and then all the way through from how customer service responds to a customer to how your salespeople actually incorporate these principles. So let me tell you what they are. I hit them very quickly, but I want you to visualize with me 4 quadrants, right? So your classic draw a line this way, one line down, one line across, and you have 4 quadrants, 4 squares, as it were, right? 2 on top, 2 on the bottom. And if you can visualize in the upper left square, a dollar sign, hold that thought, a dollar sign. In the upper right square, picture a clock, okay? In the lower right square, picture kind of a smiley face, but with a frown and like frazzle beams emanating out of their head. And then to the left, the lower left, I want you to picture just an exclamation point, big red exclamation point. All right, so let me tell you what that means and why it's so important for you as you go out into the marketplace, as you send sellers into the marketplace, as you put your message out into the marketplace. This is critical. The first is, how does your offering, how does your solution, how does your service, your product, whatever it is you do, whatever it is that you're looking to sell, that you want people to buy from you, how does it impact your customers financially? And I'm not asking you what does it cost, because it really doesn't matter. You could sell something for $50,000. If it saves them or makes them $1 million, that's cheap. On the other hand, you could sell something for $500 that's seen as a waste of money, and that will hurt your sale right there. So the financial impact is from the customer's point of view. And I can't stress this enough, because we often, as sellers, as marketers, as suppliers and vendors, however you describe yourself, as a company that makes X for this market, we want them to buy that thing from us. We always think about it in terms, or we too easily think about it in terms of kind of what it means to us to make the sale. what we think they should think about what we're offering. So we may think we're offering excellent bookkeeping services. For example, let's say you're going at the small business market and you offload bookkeeping. But what you're actually doing is maybe reducing the anxiety level of the owner who doesn't feel confident doing their own books. And they actually finally can get reports that they couldn't get before, so they can help drive their business forward. And so where's the financial impact in that? It's not the cost of your bookkeeping service, is the fact that now they can spend more time on sales, and a little bit more time from the owner on sales might be worth a few $100,000 to them. Hey, pardon the interruption, it'll just be a beat. We want to tell you about something that's really exciting, and it might be very exciting to you if you're the owner, CEO, leader of a B2B company, roughly with $2 to $20 million in revenue, and you feel a little bit stuck. You know what I mean? Sales are a little flat, maybe even declining, challenged. Margins are being squeezed. Sales cycles seem to be lengthening, and lead flow is uncertain. We've designed a program based on over a dozen years of us doing exactly this for many B2B companies. It's called the Competitive Edge Program, and you can learn more about it at valueprop.com/edge. Tells you all about the program. It's a 90-day program, really focused on helping you sharpen your value proposition, aligning your value delivery, making sure your marketing program is doing what it has to do if you're in B2B, which is generate opportunities, and make sure your sales process is tight so that you can convert those opportunities into sales. So with that note, let's get back to an exciting episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. So that's financial impact. You can also reduce costs. So financial impact goes in both directions. How do you grow their business? Like if you sell whatever you sell, how does it impact your customers' growth, your customers' revenue? And also, how does it mitigate their costs? So obviously, if you're offering something that replaces something more expensive, so you sell a machine that replaces 5 machines, it saves them money on electricity, it saves them money on rental floor space. They'll need to, it defers or delays when they'll need to get more floor space for expansion, because you reduce 5 machines into 1. You also reduce 5 operators into 1. Those are all cost savings things that somebody making that purchase is taking into account. That's your classic ROI. But what opportunities does your machine offer them for their growth? Think about it, your machine for their growth. Well, if you can handle twice the volume, that means maybe I can more aggressively, if I'm buying your machine, pursue new business that I didn't think about pursuing before. You have to articulate, you have to find a way to communicate your financial impact in language, with ideas, with thoughts that are relevant to your customer. That's key. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. That's the big idea. The other one is time. Now, time moves in 2 dimensions. You could say, how do I save people time? That's true. But also how even your sales process, or how you align with the buyer's process better, saves them time. So if, for example, you're selling something very complex, that's going to take them a lot of time to think about, that's going to involve key people on their team to evaluate what you're selling, it's possible that you're hitting them at a time of the year where they just can't get their heads wrapped around it. It's not that they don't think it's a good idea or that they wouldn't want to work with you. They just can't find the time to do it. So that's one thought. The other thought is maybe your machine, your service, feels like it's going to be a heavy time suck. Gee, that one machine that replaces 5 is going to need all kinds of new retraining. Where are we going to have the time to do that? So those are all things that could impact your sales. So you need to, as you align your value proposition, and again, these comments are pretty universal, but they are especially sharply relevant if you're in B2B, if you're selling something to a company that is involved in their business process, right? So it's not a personal purchase. Now, I understand the sales philosophy that all sales and all purchases are ultimately somewhat emotional and personal. I get that. But bigger ticket items tend to be purchased by a more considered process. In the end, it may come down to the feeling that the top executive has about your offering, about you, about your company. All those things are true, those emotional dimensions. So this isn't all about selling per se, but it is about thinking about, do we hit the key points to kind of find an anchor emotion, an anchor thought in our conversation. So the first one is financial impact. How we're going to make you money, how we're going to save you money, and then invert that into kind of an ROI, how this investment of $50,000, $100,000, $1 million is actually wise, because you're going to save this much, you're going to make this much. And that means you have to really find out more about your customer and what their issues are, what their needs are, what their pressure points are. You can't make assumptions. So that's the financial part, upper left quadrant. In the upper right quadrant, time, again, it's not just how your machine could save them time. You'll be able to make these sprockets in 1/3 the time. You'll be able to do 3 times the sprocket per hour production than you are today. That's a time dimension after the purchase. But you have to deal with realistically the time it takes for them to consider the purchase from you and the time it takes for them to absorb the purchase and get the benefit from you. Those are time dimensions that customers who are looking at things may not outright say it to you, but they're thinking about it. They're worried about it, especially now in the time that we're recording this. We're thinking, a lot of people are dealing with labor shortages. They're concerned about supply chain issues, all those things that, again, just a casual reading of the news would tell us all is happening. But here's the thing, there's always stuff going on. There's always challenges in the business world and the world. There's always going to be something going on. Just in the last 20 years, like 2 recessions and wars and pandemics, stuff is always going on. So time is very precious, and everybody knows they don't have enough of it. They don't have more of it. And, the old saying is, Bill Gates still only has 168 hours a week, the same as you or I. Granted, he has more resources to do something with that time than you or I. But the bottom line is it's still finite. It's the most finite resource. So how does your offering fit into that? How does it save them or make them? You can't make time, but how does it leverage time for them? And then going down to the lower right, we said this idea of this face with frazzle lines, and it's hassle factor. And this is like a first cousin to the time dimension, but it isn't always articulated as time. It's anything that feels like, oh, this is going to really blow that we have to do this. When customers feel that way about your offering, even though they agree with the logic of your offering, let me say that differently. Sometimes you find that you get stuck in a sales process, even though at every meeting you had, everyone involved agreed to the logic of what you were offering, but it still doesn't move forward. Usually that's because they perceive there's a hassle factor in dealing with you, in how you're going to change things. And by the way, some of those changes could be that our balance sheet or P&L, the CFO would think those are great changes, we'll save money and so on. But maybe somebody's thinking about what's the impact on morale. That machine that replaced 5 operators, that means I either reduce my staff by 5 people, or maybe I thought about how to redeploy those 5 people so I can actually maybe get other things done I wanted to get done. But if I let them go, or I can't retrain them, boy, I got to retrain them now. What am I going to do? Because they can't all be operators on the new machine, because again, it's 5-to-1 ratio in the example I gave. So that's all hassle. That's stuff that just feels weighty. It's stuff people just have to think, how am I gonna deal with that? That's like a thing. That's a pain. And people don't like things that just grind, even when they agree with the logic of what you're doing. So you have to really hit the financial advantages, you have to hit the time advantages, but then you have to think, and you should be thinking in your process, in how you engage, in how you deliver. How do you actively, intentionally reduce the hassle factor? So a lot of larger companies now have entire functions called customer success. And a lot of software companies have this because they understand that that's a step in the right direction. But I would really think about talking to your customers and just say, hey, when we started working together, what, if anything, annoyed you or frustrated you about how we got going? And they might say, well, at first it was very confusing. We didn't understand why your process worked the way it did, or why we had to have all these meetings. Whatever they say. And then you might even say, but eventually we got over that and we enjoyed it. But that was a hurdle. And you got by it if they're your customer. But maybe you have prospects that perceive a greater hassle because maybe others in your category, others of your competitors, actually, when they've tried that same switch to a new piece of accounting software, to a new piece of technology on the manufacturing floor, or a new process in terms of a new sales process. We did sales training 5 years ago, took people out of the office. It's a real hassle. Now we got to do it again. It's like a real thing. So think about how they've bought in the category, because if you're selling to people that are more than like 12 years old, they've bought in the category, probably your category before. So what is it that really vexed them, that annoyed them? Think about that, and then say, and think about how do you actually reduce that hassle factor? And then how do you articulate, we've taken steps to make this a 90-day process. We've taken steps to make the onboarding very smooth. And here are the 3 steps that we do. That's how you reduce hassle. Now you move over to the lower left and you end up with the quadrant that is called the exclamation point. That's the symbol for risk mitigation. We now live in a time where people understand supply chains can go away overnight. Fuel costs can go up 50% in a space of a month. And I cannot hire the people, even if I increase my original initial offers by 50%, I still can't find people. Those are all risk factors. So the question is, what risk does your category, does your offer, does them switching from whatever they were doing today to you, what risk do you have to mitigate? Do they have to think about it? They're thinking about it. They're saying, wow, retraining people, installing new software, new security issues, availability of equipment, whatever that thing is, they are thinking about it, and that's risk. And then so you have to think about what are the risks inherent in them choosing you, and better, how does choosing you reduce their risk as an organization downstream? Now, not all of you are selling or marketing or to bring to market something that would have those implications, but you'd be surprised how it actually connects to everything, because again, what we've seen in this last year or two is just how connected things are. So when you think about your value proposition, when you think about how you talk about it with your customers, with your prospects, think about how do we impact them positively by either saving them money or making them money. That's the financial dimension. How do we actually affect their time? So we make it easy for them, doesn't take a lot of time for them to understand us and decide to work with us. And this is how we'll actually get them some time leverage once they choose us. And then hassle's the same thing. How do we reduce the hassle of them contemplating working with us, onboarding with us, and then actually how do we reduce some other hassle factor in their entire value chain? If we could do that, you have a great story to tell. And then, of course, how do you mitigate risk? The risk of choosing you and risk in the organization over time, because you positively impact their risk picture. These may sound a little heady, but they're really not. It's why people, bottom line, they're meeting, they're saying, this is going to cost us too much money. It's going to take us too much time. It's going to be a pain to deal with. And boy, what if this happens or that happens and so on? You see, that's a very human conversation. That's the conversation. This is going to cost us too much money. It's not going to deliver the results. It's actually going to take us too much time. It's actually going to be a pain to deal with. And it's actually going to be, it's going to inject some new risk that we don't otherwise have. If you cannot tell a positive story in your marketing, in your content, in your engagement, in your sales process, and in your actual procedures when you work with customers that address those 4 things, one or more of them will be your Achilles heel, where you'll have great meetings, you'll be sure you've made progress, and all of a sudden you get either radio silence, a long delay, or a flat out no. And the reasons they give may not be that clear. So really be mindful of this. And if you do, you really have the opportunity to sharpen your value proposition, which is the cornerstone, the key thing you have to do first to really develop a competitive edge to win more and better business. If you want to learn more about the Competitive Edge program that we offer, where we go into these principles in much more detail, just go to our site at valueprop.com/edge, EDGE, and learn more about it. Of course, you can always find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, reach out to me. And to make it easy, we created a domain to take you right to my LinkedIn profile. It's josepalomino.com. Can't be easier than that. So I look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn, and we can process it when we do these episodes, tackling the tough things about actually winning competitively in these very tough, competitive, increasingly commoditizing markets that we're all in, because the world is getting smaller, and there's a lot of opportunities there for people to grab the attention of your prospect, your customer. So you have to get there first, do it better, so you can win more and better business. To your success. Take care. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. If you like this episode, and if you like the series, make sure you subscribe below. And also, if you liked it, please do review it. When people are looking for something exciting to listen to, especially the kind of content we're bringing, which is practical insights for B2B companies, this is a place and a free resource that they can take advantage of. Let them know about it with your review. So subscribe, review, enjoy. Thanks again.